to, of course, you, Teresa, all the folks who will be watching this on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on other platforms, hopefully forever. Uh, Today is the last day in April, which has been a grueling month, an unprecedented April for most of us. And we're excited to talk about, what's ahead. We're excited to talk about things that people are going to do with their social media that's going to help them not only today, but move their business forward. And especially in this new sort of era where I think there's going to be even more focus on digital marketing and connecting with people without actually becoming face-to-face. So a lot of this is going to be about social media branding. So not just the fact that you use social media, but how you're going to be able to effectively communicate with folks and use your brand to help you do that. So we'll go over a couple things, just some benefits, some do's and don'ts, just some generic stuff regarding social media branding. And then, of course, open it up to any questions that we've received on social or from people that are going to be joining the chat. And then just kind of like an open discussion, like Kevin mentioned a little while ago. But just to kick things off, we figured we'd jump into why the branding of your social media is so important. Again, this isn't necessarily why social media is important. We have to assume that anyone as an entrepreneur or a business owner knows already social media is a vital part of how you grow your business. But what you're putting on social, how you're putting it on social, the way you're communicating, all that is extremely important as well. So just some of the general benefits that you'll get from doing this sort of branding is, one, you get really good credibility with people. And I'm talking about new people that do not know you. When you have a good presence and a good brand and a cohesive voice on your social, when someone comes and sees you for the first time, they're more interested in actually looking further and learning about you and engaging with you. It gives a lot of value to who you are as a business to someone just based on your appearance. It's almost like if you were to go to a meeting and look a certain way, let's say you're looking sloppy or unkept,
Right.
that would have an effect on that first impression, that new audience. So you really want to make sure that your branding is cohesive. And I will use that as a segue to apologize for Kevin's appearance. He's not face-to-face with anyone at a business table. So I think we allow it for quarantine, but
Yeah, I think we're on week 7 of quarantine now, and
yeah.
I've gotten a lot of comments on our webinars about how great my hair always looks. So at this point, I just got to kind of rock with it, and
And I will vow.
I have a 4-month-old at home and a dog who also needs a lot of attention. So when I'm out of bed, there's not much time to myself. I'm usually getting out of bed for a very specific reason that needs very specific attention quickly. And sometimes I jump on these, group discussions or team meetings for our company without having a chance to do my hair. And first couple times it was an accident, and now it's, we just got to rock with it. So
And I'll
this is actually one of the
vouch
better
for the
looks I've had so
credibility
far.
of Kevin. I'll be his extension of professionalism, because I actually am only seeing him like this for the first few times, because I'm used to seeing him in the office setting and he's always pristine. So I'm enjoying the new look, Kevin, that I'm getting.
We're going to balance each other out.
Right. Another big benefit of social media branding is building the trust and brand loyalty with your existing audience. So I'm not just talking about the people who just come and just came across your account and want to see that sort of brand identity come through. I'm talking about the people who are now already invested in you. It's about keeping up that brand, making sure that you're constantly putting out content, stuff that relates to what your goals are and talking about that helps your audience. And that just builds that trust and loyalty with them. And we're not talking from a sales perspective. We're not talking about, I'm always putting out content about my products and they love my products. It's really giving a consistent voice so that when you do want to put out something that is more sales focused, or there's something that they can engage with that you really need them to, they're already tied in with you. They're locked in. They've been trusting your brand. They've been following you and engaging with your content for a period of time. Now you can really move that audience in certain directions when you need to, because you've established that loyalty. And the great way to get that across is that brand strategy. I'm sorry, that branding across your entire platform. or platforms. Of course, you're probably on multiple social channels. Another key benefit is it allows you the ability to properly educate your followers about your business and about what you offer. Again, not everything is sales. This is what I offer as like, buy this, but this is who I am. This is what my company's about. This is what our purpose is. This is why we help people. Like, you really want to get that benefit of properly educating people through having that consistent voice and consistent brand. And now that puts you on a level of professionalism that, people respect. And of course, now they know everything about you. Now, when these people hear about you or talk about you, they're speaking from an educated stance because they know so much because of what you were able to do with a really solid brand on your social. And you've heard me mention a few times already about engagement. That is a huge benefit of having a really good branding with your social media. You want people to interact. You want them to respond to questions. You want them to share your stuff, your content. The better you brand your content, the more likely that's going to happen. And again, engagement ties directly to everything from followership to sales to other opportunities, which is that next sort of main benefit. Those business opportunities you can gain from it, not just sales, but it can be relationships with other businesses. There's a lot of opportunity to grow your business through social that's not directly tied to sales. And again, you're able to attract that because of that appearance you're putting off with your really good branding for your social, that now you can get other businesses wanting to either be like you or work with you, have their business associated with yours. You're able to foster all that through your social media presence and branding.
Yeah, one thing I want to interject with to kind of take a step back. I've done a lot of social media presentations in the past, and one thing that I usually start with that we did not start with this time around is I pull up a list of the 30 most highly utilized websites in the country, and I ask people to identify which of these sites are social media sites. And of course, everybody always sees Facebook, usually around like number 3 or number 4. Everybody identifies Instagram and Twitter and LinkedIn, and it's easy. And then I kind of review what social media is. And social media is a platform that allows you to create content and others to engage with that content. And with that in mind, you now start to kind of expand, what does social media mean? Your blog is a social media site. Your online directories, whether your business is listed in Yelp or it's listed on TripAdvisor or it's listed on, any of those other directory sites, depending what's appropriate for your industry. Same thing. You have content on there. You have information about your business, and people can leave feedback and people can comment, and hopefully a 5-star review. And guess what? You've got that interaction. It's a social media platform. YouTube, you're uploading content. You're in this case video. People can leave their comments. Social media. So it really gets you kind of expanding on what social media really means. And that kind of goes back to everything that Zach just listed. When you're building trust and loyalty, that's not just having a good Facebook post and generating that conversation, but it's also online reputation management, making sure that people are leaving positive reviews, that people want to engage and share your brand and talk about why your brand was great. And of course, if there's negative feedback, be social and do something about it. Don't just let it sit there. Turn something negative into a positive. But I think that's something people sometimes have issues with when you hear social media and you say, "Oh, I don't like Facebook." Well, social media is a lot more than Facebook. Facebook is very important. I think you need to get on board with Facebook a lot of the time. But there is more to it, when we talk about this concept of social media.
Right. Speaking of social media, I literally just took a boomerang of us and posted it on my Instagram page.
Was my hair bouncing around well?
Let's see here. I don't know. Can you see us?
We got a little bit of a glare, but I'll check it out afterwards.
A little bit.
I'm not going to go on social media during our presentation, but I'll check it out later.
So just to kind of move on to some of the key things you want to make sure you're doing to maintain a really good social media brand. And I know this is Kevin's wheelhouse, so I'll kind of let you dive into this one. But you really want to refer to your brand kit. A lot of folks don't have a brand kit. When I started my business, I did not have a brand kit. Um, and it might be the time to create one if you're not sure what direction to go with the look of your branding. But Kevin, can you dive into the value of a brand kit for folks?
Yeah, so a brand kit is, kind of just lightly spoke, as far as just keeping it simple, a brand kit is basically rules and guidelines for your business to follow. You want to make sure that things stay consistent. You want to make sure that everyone on your team is following your rules. You want to make sure that outsiders are following your rules as well. So you hear the term brand kit, and the first thing you probably think is, well, that sounds expensive. My business isn't doing that. The answer is a brand kit can be very expensive. It's kind of how in depth do you want to go with that brand kit? But typically, from a design perspective, your brand kit, your brand guidelines, whatever you want to call it, um, a brand kit is what are your appropriate logos, what are your appropriate fonts, what are your primary colors, your secondary colors, setting those standards. Again, that's all from a design perspective, but it's making sure when your logo is used, your logo is used the right way. A lot of times there's rules of what type of backgrounds your logo can go on, what kind of backgrounds it can't go on. If you need to put it on a background, what does the screen behind it need to look like? So make sure there's enough contrast and that we're not muddying the waters when your logo really needs to stand out. Are you allowed to use your logo in reverse, which means like a white version of the logo instead of color? Can you use a black version? Are you allowed to use different colors? Everybody has different rules for what's right and what's wrong, but you need to establish that consistency. And that's important whether you're using the logo yourself for your own team or if you're giving your logo to someone else because they need to include it in their materials, on their website, and their sponsor banners, whatever they're using the logo for. Colors, you want to, again, maintaining consistency. What are your primary colors? What are your secondary colors? You want to make sure everyone's following the rules and that your brand is recognized well by establishing that consistency. Same thing with fonts. What are your primary fonts? What are your secondary fonts? A lot of businesses have issues with having certain fonts for print and then having certain fonts for web because some fonts don't carry over. Not necessarily a bad thing, but what are the rules? Set the rules. We need to know what that is. Then we go into messaging, and that comes up big on social media as well. What does your elevator pitch sound like? So what is your brief description of your company? What is your longer description of your company? What type of buzzwords does your company use? For Navitas marketing, for anyone who doesn't know, Navitas is the Latin word for energy. So we have a lot of terminology in our brand kit that centers around energy and different words that we want to use. We give our clients a jolt of energy. We help them find their inner energy. Different wording, different phrases that are included in our marketing every day. What kind of images do we use? Some brands use images that that always have to have people, that never have people. We always want to have a certain screen. Maybe we always want them to be duotone. Maybe there always has to be round corners or square corners. I mean, you can really, really go in depth with some of this stuff with tools. Everybody's going to have a different approach. Some are going to go a little deeper. Some are going to be a little more generic, but it's nice to have, that overall, set of rules, some sort of guidelines to go by.
Just to give you an example, even though this isn't quite quote unquote social media, you can see this simple presentation we put together, the branding that is consistent through it. You have our brand colors, you have the lightning, which represents energy. You have, that color theme, even though we've changed the layout and the look, the font is the same, the colors are the same, it's all consistent. So this gives a better presentation. And just like you would do in a presentation like this, you do that same thing for your social media presence. And it's just going to be received well, and you'll be the beneficiary of it. And as we'll get to a little bit later, it's actually simpler for you if you keep it in that sort of consistent, same voice, same style. Now you don't have to reinvent the wheel every single time you want to put something out. Kevin just touched on it too. Establishing your voice and your tone. There's the voice and tone for your brand that's supposed to really showcase, you know, what it is you're trying to convey. And then there's also, how do you want to talk to your audience? You know, how do they best receive the information you want to give? So really understanding who your target is, who you're speaking to, that weighs so heavily on your branding, especially as it pertains to your voice and your tone. A lot of folks, you know, when they want to do social media, their biggest hurdle isn't necessarily what to post visually. It's, what's my caption? What do I write? You know, I don't know what I'm going to say or how I need to say it. And the really good social media brands you'll see out there, you'll notice they all speak in a certain style, and it's continuous. Some pages, and I haven't decided whether personally I like it or not. Some pages, all they post is like one word, maybe two words, maybe it's just a hashtag, and you'll notice on all their posts, that's what they give you. And I'm like, I could have used some more information there, but no, that is the tone that they're setting for their branding. They want you to think what you want to think. They want you to react how you want to react. They don't want to tell you a ton of information about what they just showed you, which is an interesting approach. But again, once you define your brand and your tone, you just carry that throughout everything you're doing.
Yeah, that's something that, as a marketing agency, of course, we manage tons and tons of social media accounts for clients. And that's one of the biggest things, is making sure that we're always maintaining the right consistency, the right voice, and the right tone for everybody. Because it's not about how we would do it, it's about how they would do it. And, making sure that the brands who want to be light and casual are light and casual, and the ones who want to be more professional are being more professional, and, making sure that we are representing them. When you're the business owner, you only have one business, so you know how you like to do it, and obviously just make sure you're doing it that way. But then as you get others involved, it's making sure that they are able to pick up on that exact same voice and tone and maintain that.
Indeed. So this is a big one for me. This next one, you want to use the right content to reach the right people on the right platforms. So what that means is we'll kind of work backwards. Right platforms. Where do you need to have your brand? Facebook is different than Instagram, is different than Twitter, is different than YouTube, is different than LinkedIn. All these different platforms have different benefits. A lot of them have different audiences that you're going to try to target and hit. So first thing you have to figure out is, where do I belong? You don't have to be on every single social platform. There are some that I think are just paramount. Facebook and LinkedIn are my two that I kind of say you have to have. Facebook because it just has the most people. I think, in terms of putting your content on there, it is going to give you the biggest bang for your buck because of the amount of folks you can reach. Now, in addition to that, it might skew a little older. So if your target market is 18 to 30, you might not focus as much there. You might put more energy into an Instagram or a Snapchat or a TikTok. And again, does your business even fit on those platforms? And a lot of businesses have no business being on TikTok. But they do what they can to interact and be hip and young, and that's okay, especially if you have the time, energy, and resources to do it. A lot of entrepreneurs, you don't have that resource. You don't have that time to be on 7 different platforms and monitoring them. So you really want to pick what is the right platform for my brand. And you're judging that by knowing who you're trying to reach. So certain platforms are geared towards certain individuals, certain age groups. So that's understanding your right target market, your right person that you're going after will help you find that. And then there's that content part that kind of stems into that voice is, the right people, you're on the right platforms. What is the right content? Certain types of content are better on certain platforms. As you know, Instagram, very visual. If you're going to Twitter, you can of course have visuals too. The ability to just write quick comments and have conversations is much greater on Twitter. You're not as visually focused as you might be on an Instagram. Clearly, YouTube, got to have video. So are you producing video content? What other platforms do you want to put that video content on? Because video content is a larger investment of time and energy than a photo. So if you make that video content, you don't just want it on YouTube. You want to put it on other platforms as well. So again, in a future Thursday, we're going to dive really deep into content. But that's all into that strategy of how you're putting together this branding. You want to understand what kind of content you're creating, who you're creating it for, and of course, what platform you're delivering that content on. Another really big focus that we have with the branding is developing templates. This makes it very simple, not simple always to create, but this makes it a lot easier for you to keep up with consistency. Consistency is key, kind of like the example that I have on the side of the screen. You'll see the consistency and the pattern that this person has created on their page. Now, the template that I'm referring to are just those black posts with the white writing. That's not a very difficult template to create, as you guys can imagine. And of course, there's much more intricate things you can do on social, but just that simple pattern of that template allows them to create this and create it easily. I would probably guess that they did maybe 20 of those in one sitting, and they're just scheduling these and having them ready to post, which is also wise. And of course, there's plenty of resources to go out there and kind of create this stuff on your own. Us at Navitas, we offer those services to help folks create, whether it be a template format where we get it set up and then they use it themselves, or if they need us to continuously be creating things for them, we do both. But definitely developing templates is a big do when it comes to social media branding.
Yeah, and obviously not only do they have templates for the text, and they established the pattern of alternating, to create that grid, but also going back to the brand kit, it's obvious that, part of their branding is that their images are always on those light backgrounds. So even when you see the images, and of course they're not the same photos every time, there's still a level of consistency. You're not just alternating text versus image, but you're alternating dark versus light.
And
so just take that branding that much further.
And I haven't, I'm going to go back to their page and check them out, but I'm pretty sure they actually kept a color flow with those other images. So you can see how the top three are kind of pink and those bottom three are kind of green. You keep going down the page, you have different colors shifting over the course. So they're creating a brand within a brand. They're going to be creating this visual experience, when you come to their page, which is really cool. One last do that is really important when it comes to being a social media platform is your bio. Do not chintz on your bio. Put some energy into it, put some thought into it. Everything from LinkedIn to Instagram, Facebook, how do people contact you? There's so much information you can get to people and have them understand about your business in a bio that not only does that add credibility, but again, that's typically the first thing people see when they come to your account. So before they even scroll and look at anything else you want them to see, that bio is getting looked at. So you want to put valuable information in there. If you have a website that you're trying to draw traffic to, that belongs in your bio. At Navitas, we use a lot of third-party programs to actually put multiple links in bios of a platform like Instagram, because they only allow you one. So if you want to get more information out there, you can use certain third-party apps to actually populate more links so you can steer more people where you need them to go. You definitely want to put some energy into your bio. If you look on LinkedIn, a lot of people are getting very creative. You don't see as many people writing CEO, CFO, they go, chief guru of, brainstorming at what such and such company. You can have fun with it. And me as a stickler for visuals, I always tell people when you're doing a bio, I include any headline visual in that. So your icon, when you're on Instagram, if you're a personal brand, it should be some sort of imagery of you. If you're a business, it should be your logo. When you're on LinkedIn, your background. I don't want to see the LinkedIn blue connected dots. Like, that tells me you didn't really put a ton of energy into figuring out how you want to come off and present yourself. So all these things I kind of lump into that bio, sort of like top line presenting yourself on social media. And that's just something people should really put some energy into.
Yeah, for anybody who's managing a business page on Facebook, stop putting photos in as your profile picture, please. When we see it real small, we have no idea what that photo is. So your profile picture for a page, please make that your logo, and your cover photo, that's where you can start putting photos in there. So
Sure.
Here's my helpful tip of the day.
Yeah, thank you, Kevin.
Hopefully one of many.
Right. And now, before we kind of just open the discussion up, we'll just go over a few don'ts in relation to your social media branding. big one that a lot of folks do is don't fall off. Don't give up. You got to stay consistent with whatever you're putting out, whether it be a campaign you're working on, even if it's you're creating this pattern on your social page. If you start blogging with any regularity, you must stay consistent. Lack of consistency jeopardizes that trust and that loyalty. It decreases all of the energy and the effort you've already put into your social when you're kind of bouncing around, jumping from one strategy to another. Now, this does put a lot of onus on you coming up with a good strategy. You'll see later on we do 20-minute consultations in case folks need help with kind of formulating that. But once you have that strategy in place, it's very important to stay consistent with it. Another thing that you really want to stay away from, if you can, is posting the same thing on all your platforms. And I mean this in a couple of different ways. Different platforms, you talk differently on them. To give a simple example, like a Twitter, you have a character limit. A lot of people will post to Instagram and just share that same post to Twitter. And when you look at the Twitter feed, it looks pretty terrible. You have the first however many characters of what you wrote, and then a link that sends you back to Instagram. When you're going to get a lot more value if you take whatever image you posted on Instagram, take the time to go over to Twitter, post that image, post a caption that fits on Twitter, and then post that. That particular post is going to get way more engagement than just sharing the same thing you had on Instagram. And this really relates a lot even when you're talking about hashtags. Hashtags aren't very popular on Facebook. So if you're posting something on Facebook, it's better to maybe put 1 or 2 hashtags on there, but you don't need the 20 hashtags you were putting on Instagram. Someone can definitely tell if you're just sharing what was on Instagram onto your Facebook page. So you really want to give some thought to put time in there. Now, I don't downplay the folks who just don't have the time to do it all and they have to just share it on multiple platforms. You want to try to work yourself out of that. But I definitely won't condemn anybody who is kind of stuck in that rut. I mean, at one point I used to do it. But if you can, you want to try to make sure that whatever platforms you're on, you're at least putting the energy into those platforms to make sure that you're posting things that they're going to do as good as possible on those platforms for you.
Yeah, you also see a lot of people who post things on Facebook who connect it to Instagram, and that causes a problem because Instagram wants square photos, not horizontal. And you also see a lot of businesses and people put very long hyperlinks into captions on Instagram that are not clickable. So they're just taking up real estate that nobody is able to copy and paste and nobody is able to click on. So just stop doing it. You can put a link in your bio and say, to read, the full article or to purchase this product or, whatever you're doing, see the link in our profile. Of course, make sure you remember to change the link back later. But that's another, shortcut that ends up being a negative instead of a positive.
I almost feel bad to have a pet peeve that is related to social media.
Oh, I got plenty of them.
I would argue, yeah, right. I would argue that's probably my top 1 or 2 is people putting websites in Instagram captions, especially the ones that are like WL943. Like, I'm not typing that in. If you're www.mywebsite.com, all right, maybe I'll go. But like, if you have something that looks like one of those auto-generated passwords, don't put that in your caption. And just to let you know, my other top one that I'm kind of tied with is when people put videos on Instagram and don't change the cover. So when you look at their feed, it's just a black box. I hate that. I hate that so much. And I think there was maybe like a 10-hour period back when like video became popular on Instagram that was like, oh, this is cool. People will think it's like a mystery and they'll want to click it and find out what they're going to watch. And that's so not the case. So stop it. Don't do it. Next thing on our don'ts is overposting and underposting. I automatically unfollow anyone who has 10 to 15 times more posts than they do followers. I do not want to be following someone who posts 10 times a day or more. That's ridiculous. And I'm speaking about certain platforms, mainly Facebook and Instagram. On Twitter, if you want to consider commenting a post, you can. I mean, it's okay to be very active on Twitter, but posting your original content and flooding timelines will get you more unfollowed than followed and appreciated. And kind of same thing on the underpost side as well. What are you going to say, Kevin?
Yeah, I was going to say, a common question when we talk about this is always, well, what is too much and what is not enough? There's a couple things to take into account. One, I think, is just how much quality content do you actually have to share? I remember, way back when we were in, high school and college, and you'd be writing a paper, and you'd ask the teacher, how long is it supposed to be? And the answer was, as long as it is good. Don't cut anything out because you think it's getting too long, and don't throw in all this extra fluff and crap that nobody wants to read because you're trying to hit a certain limit. Make it good, and make it quality. And I think a lot of times that concept kind of applies to social media. If you've got stuff to share, then share it. If you don't have stuff to share, don't force it and turn people off. The other thing to think about is algorithms. So we know that when you post on Facebook, a very, very low percentage of your followers are going to see that content, unless you're boosting it or unless it's highly engagement provoking. I don't think that's a real term, but I'm going to use it anyway. But as people engage, it does get seen by more people. So, maybe you do have to post a little bit more frequently on Facebook to make sure your brand is being seen by more people. Whereas like Instagram, which has a higher level of a higher algorithm, and it is being seen by more of your followers, maybe you don't have to post quite as frequently, and it's more important to go after quality than quantity. So there is no perfect answer of how often should I be posting. There are other variables you got to think about.
To that point, I can remember numerous times in high school where I had to write 5-page term papers, and at 3.5 pages, that paper was an A. I mean, it was fire. And I fluffed it up to 5 pages with a bunch of crap. And when I tell you I get like a C and it's like I didn't connect the dots. Well, that's because you made me write so much. Like I got my point across very quickly. That's very frustrating.
Microsoft Word has double spacing. They need to implement triple spacing. So
there we go. Stretch it out a little bit. Another thing you really don't want to do is ignoring comments, DMs, messages on your social. This hurts your brand. When people reach out, when people give you a comment, not only do you want to, at the very least, like their comment, but it's always great to respond and kind of to that magic word Kevin said a little while ago, algorithms. The more engagement you have in your platforms, the more these platforms show your content to other people. So it's looking at your social media post, your Instagram post that had 5 people comment on it. It's going to boost. But if you commented back to all those people, now that's 10 comments on that post. Now it's going to show even more people because they're thinking, wow, this post is really engaging. People really like it. We're going to show it to more folks. Just why when you post or you see someone do a happy birthday post, and so many people have said happy birthday on that post, that now that's the top of other people's pages and you see it even though you didn't see anything about that person for the last 4 months. Facebook is saying, this is relevant. A lot of people are engaging. Let me share it to more folks who are connected to them. So you always want to engage with folks, not just for the algorithm side, but also there's a customer service tie-in when it comes to growing your brand. And just like if you were to call a business and they didn't answer, you'd kind of be annoyed. You would want them to call back. Well, social media is, I don't want to say it's replacing the phone and direct contact with folks, but it's become a number 2 to communication that kind of works in the same way. You want to respond to those messages. I will be one of the first to admit I was very poor at checking LinkedIn messages, partially because I got so inundated with messages that were spam that I just stopped paying attention. And because of that, I lost at least 2 business opportunities because by the time I saw the message, it was a month later and they've already moved on to someone else. And that was painful for me. I had to apologize and I did everything I could to try to at least make them not think I was a degenerate, but it was what it was. I lost the opportunity. And definitely making sure you're always checking that is very important. If you're going to be on the platform, you're on there to engage with an audience. So you got to do
Well, hopefully those two examples were before you started working with us at Navitas.
it.
Um,
No comment.
but I think, going back to that, I mean, just the common sense side of it is the first word in social media is social. So when somebody is trying to be social with you and you ignore them, that's not very social. It's as easy as that.
Right. Right. And one last thing that we want to warn folks to not do is don't neglect to proofread your work. Most of us on social are not English majors. We don't pride ourselves to be able to spell everything correctly, but you got to understand you're most likely dealing with a cell phone. I'm sure many of you have used or typed a text message or something where autocorrect changed what you said. Typed something so fast that you didn't realize you spelled out instead of or hour, and you messed up a word. Like that happens all the time. Proofread your stuff before you put it out there. And what I practice, and I've been doing this for a while, especially with My New Philly, is when I post something, not only do I proof it before I post it, but then I'll go to my page and make sure I like it as my personal page, and then I'll read it again just to make sure there's nothing that I messed up, because you don't want to put yourself out there with tons of misspellings and errors that you're going to lose credibility and loyalty with your audience. You want to make sure you're at least spelling everything correctly.
Yeah, every brand has a different audience. Again, some are more professional, some are more casual, some are more humorous, but either way, you still got to have some level of professionalism. Spell your stuff right, use the correct there, or there. You can have some fun while still being grammatically correct.
For sure. Now, I think for the remainder of this chat, we'll kind of just open up a general conversation. I know me and Kevin had a couple topics worth diving a little more into, but specific to you, Teresa, since you're the only one on the chat live with us.
I know how fortunate is that?
Right? I know
one-on-one.
Yeah, this is like your own private consultation. I know you mentioned in the chat earlier that you're in this stage right now doing some rebranding. Give us a little bit of detail on your brand and sort of where you're at right now in that process.
Well, right now, initially back a couple of years ago, I had a logo designed and created by Fiverr, of course. And I still love the design, love the logo, but there's some minor alterations that I want done. Mm-hmm. And then business cards. It's funny, I reached out to Zach this morning about your dad's business card, because I met him a few years ago.
Yep.
And his business card was really, really, really memorable to me. I remember the feel of it, the texture of it. And so I want my card, once it's done, to be made just like that one.
Oh, that's great.
So that's when I reached out to Zach this morning, and then here we are.
Wonderful. Well, I'm thrilled that you remember our business cards. Obviously, that's part of our brand. We want them to be memorable, and thank you for remembering, and thanks for reaching back out.
Indeed. And so tell me, what's the name of the brand that you are either considering doing a little bit of a refresh?
So it's Momco Media LLC, and
Gotcha.
under that we're doing the local newspapers, community newspapers. Gotcha.
Indeed. And you already have you established social media pages already for the community newspapers, or where are you at in that process?
I do, yes. And as you were talking, I was just looking back at them, and I'm like, oh my God, some things I'm doing, some things I'm not doing. So mm-hmm. I'm working on those now. So the both pages I have, but I am also thinking if I should have pages for them or groups, because ultimately the goal of it is in Montgomery County, where I am, the newspapers are going to be focused around the 23 school districts that we have. So the main goal is then to have like 23 local newspapers within the Montgomery County, within each of the school districts. So that's my goal. So I don't know if I should really be looking towards having 23 pages, as opposed to one page and then different groups for each of the page groups, each of the papers.
Gotcha. I think, well, first initially, that particular business is very, it coincides very much with our topic today in relation to branding, because not only are you branding your main conglomerate that oversees everything, but now you have all these different branches which should have their own slight tweaks to the brand and all really
And
relate back
specific
to
to
the parent
each
company. Yeah.
specific to each company, exactly.
And then the other thing is, you might not really fit in that model of what we say is over posting, because you're doing this as a news platform. Your goal is to inform those communities of what's going on a variety of topics and areas. So you might be posting quite a bit, having a news media platform. But yeah, what are your thoughts towards that, Kevin, in relation to groups versus separate pages for all these different branches?
Yes, I'd have a couple questions before having a strong opinion.
Right.
But the first thing is, typically when you think about a page on Facebook, your goal is to put out content, put out information, put out questions. In your case, it's news. You're putting out news. When you think about groups, usually the goal is to have each of the members interacting more with each other. So, from that perspective, what is your goal? Are you trying to get your audience to be engaging with you and the content you are putting out, in which case pages are more appropriate? Or are you trying to give your audience a place to interact with each other and talk about certain topics, in which case groups would probably be more.
See, that was my concern, if I should have both for each.
And that may be the answer.
Right, and that was my concern, and that I would really be needing. That was my concern. That's what I came into, because I do want to have the page, but then give them a space to interact with each other about the content, or just engaging with each other. That's where the group would come in.
Yeah, and then I guess my other question, going back to the pages, would be: are you mentioned having a publication for each school district. So is each school district's publication going to have its own brand, or should it all be under one umbrella of your Montgomery County organization? Maybe the answer is you have one Facebook page for your company, but then you have groups for each of the districts, so that they can, again, I don't know what they'd be talking about in those groups, but that way they have your one brand page to follow to get news, regardless of which district the news is coming from. But there's also groups for them to talk about truly hyper-local, issues that are going on, whether it's news you're producing or stuff within the district, or
right.
So maybe it's kind of a hybrid of the two.
Right.
I'd be curious. Are you dedicating the same staff to all of the counties, or are you going to have separate reporters and staff for each of the individual counties? I'm just thinking that if you have
not counties, districts.
Oh, I'm sorry,
yes.
not county. I meant districts. I'm sorry.
Yes. Yeah.
So you need to have somebody monitoring those pages and those groups. So if you have somebody different on your side dedicated to each of the districts, then it makes it easier for you to manage having separate platforms for each of the districts.
Right. Okay.
But I think it comes down to your brand again. Is each district can be branded separately, or do they all have the same umbrella, the same brand, but then it's just hyphen Upper Dublin and hyphen Colonial School District, and so on.
Right now, as it is, this Country Courier for the Colonial School District, and then there is Norristown for the Norristown School District. So the next one would be Upper Merion.
Okay.
So I wanted to be for each to have its own identity.
Okay.
Each page to have its own identity, with them engaging in each other in their own little world.
Gotcha. So it sounds like, without, we're not diving real deep into, your mission and everything, but personally, I could see having a separate page for each,
right.
for each district, and possibly a group also. You're seeing a lot of pages start groups because they are trying to create that engagement with each other.
Right, exactly. Okay.
And
And then what's happening up in Phoenixville School District is not the same as what's happening in Colonial, so we don't want to mix them
Right.
together.
Yep, that makes sense.
Separate conversations.
Right.
indeed, look at that, a question solved here on the Navitas open discussion. So, and I think this was great, for sure. Teresa, I'll connect with you, of course, offline, both about your requests regarding the cards, and if you're interested in chatting with us any further about strategy, we're open to having those chats. And next week we are going to be back with, I believe, inbound marketing. Kevin, does that sound correct?
It's either inbound marketing or SEO. I know we have about 2 months worth of these live webinars scheduled out.
Mm-hmm.
So I do encourage anybody to go to our website, www.navitasmarketing.com. Go to the events page, check out what's coming up. We have, as I said, we've got about 2 months worth of these Thursday Thoughts webinars scheduled out with different topics and a couple other.
Thursday?
I'm sorry?
Never mind. Carry on.
No problem.
No.
And there's a couple other events, some different discussions that we're having on other topics, a couple other organizations getting mixed in. So I do encourage everyone to, keep an eye on what we're doing. And, really appreciate everyone who joined us today. Teresa, thanks for coming to us live. Look forward to, I know we had a, pretty good list of people who were interested in joining us live who weren't able to jump on last minute, but hopefully they'll catch us on Facebook and Instagram and YouTube and anywhere else we can disperse this content. The events like these are part of our content strategy, just like we encourage everyone else to have. So, Zach, if you have any closing remarks, go for it. But on my end, thanks to everyone who are joining us either live or afterwards.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Indeed. Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to next week. And we have a couple other lunch and learns that we're going to be doing separate from Thursday Thoughts. So we'll be posting that on the events calendar as well. So when you go to the Navitas page and check out the events calendar, you'll see the Thursday Thoughts and you'll see some special lunch and learns we're going to be doing. And all of this is no cost. You can join any of these for free.